Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast.
My name is Bear Saragusa, and you are listening to the Hunting Hound podcast presented by W Hunting Supply. Hey folks, Bear here. Well, the snow is still melting, not totally gone. The weather's getting a little bit warmer, which is nice. Dogs are getting lazy and fat and out of shape, or at least out of top shape. They're keeping them in shape, but one of those things, time of year where it's muddy and disgusting, and we're getting out, but it's we're not going to impress anybody. And yeah, starting to look a little bit at the summer and getting some plans ready. Gonna bring some sheep in and gonna keep working on that young dog, that Vida dog from Sweden that I've got here. I'm really happy with her. She's turning out to be something I really like, tall and big, real big, biggest female I've ever had of any kind. And just a good looking hound that I'm really looking forward to seeing what she turns out to be. Otherwise, I've got that Beagle Mike, who had a great season. We switched game about halfway through the season. I, broke him on deer because it's allowed to hunt deer over here. And but then the lynx moved in, and suddenly there weren't any deer. So we had to make an adjustment on the fly. And one thing that there was plenty of was snowshoe hare. So in November, we made the change to snowshoe hare and started working on that, and had some great hunts by the end of the season. He was doing real well. So hoping to continue with that once this fall rolls around. But, there's a lot going on the W platform these days. You've heard a bunch about it, I'm sure, already, but it was really cool. This is just a few days after Brett Vaughn is back on the platform. He's been gathering some great interviews and doing a lot of fun things. So there's a lot of good content coming from there. He brought us all of those Warriors of Elgato and the Dale Lee tapes and things like that. So really looking forward to see what he brings us now. I've also got one thing I'm also really excited about is Heath Hyatt's hopped on the W network, which is just excellent for everybody. I think I'm super psyched to have him be associated with W. I feel like it makes me look shinier just being in the same room. So super psyched to have Heath around. I'm also absolutely pumped that the Full Cry magazine has started their own podcast. And so far it's been some readings of some of the old articles and poems and things like that from some of the old issues of Full Cry magazine. So I've done a couple of the readings, which has been just a ton of fun. There's so many good articles. The most challenging part of the whole thing is picking out the good articles, or not picking out the good articles, but picking out the articles I want to do from amongst all of the incredible articles. I was looking through it. There's actually articles in some of the old Full Cries written by Charlton Heston. I mean, a bunch of different people. It's a crazy, crazy thing going through it all. So it is so cool to see Full Cry back on a roll, and getting on the airwaves and breaking into new media. They're also on YouTube right now, putting out some of their podcasts there as well. They're going to have some potentially some video content down the road. And yeah, they're doing so many cool things. And, you know, even if you took away all the new cool things they're doing, just what they're doing with the magazine, bringing it back to its roots, the quality, everything is just, it's so cool to see. And I'm so psyched to see them pop onto the W feed as well. So, and that kind of leads me into a little bit of what I want to talk about today. You know, it's something I think quite a bit about is, you know, there's this old saying that no man's an island. And, you know, so much of what we do as houndsmen is we spend an awful lot of time alone. You know, we really do. We really spend a lot of time out there all by ourselves. And can make it feel a little bit lonely sometimes. You know, sometimes you kind of feel like you're doing your own thing and you kind of forget that other people are doing it a little bit. And you know, it's easy to kind of get into this individualistic headspace with the whole thing. And, you know, it reminds me like looking at everything, you know, this sort of melting pot of cool people and good minds and good houndsmen that W has put together and what Full Cry is doing kind of reminds me that we are actually we're all in this together, you know. And thinking about how, you know, it's gotten me thinking. And I want to take this opportunity to ask you guys who listen to this about your thoughts on the community aspect of houndsmen. You know, it's all well and good to, you know, be part of these groups on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. It's that's a great start. You know, it gives us a sense that we're a part of something bigger than ourselves, and that we're maybe not as alone, or maybe, you know, that we're as a community, as a sport, as a lifestyle, we're a little bit stronger together. But, you know, how does that actually translate into the real life? You know, what are we, each individual one of us, doing to make our community better, more solid? Are we, you know, and the contributions can be so drastically different and still important. You know, there are some people who put on, you know, potlucks, or, you know, put on hunts and just don't have hounds themselves, but show up and make food for everybody. There are people that, you know, edit. There are people that run through all of these podcasts and do all the editing for all these podcasts. You know, what I think it's so important, at least for me, and it's something I've been thinking a lot about. What am I doing to make our sport and our lifestyle a better place? You know, is it enough for me to be sitting here just talking? I don't think so. Is it enough to be writing articles and, you know, that kind of stuff? You know, I don't think so. You know, you got to, on a global sense, I get more attention maybe than I deserve. You know, I've not been doing this for that long. There are people with so much more experience than I have, and so much more valid and to add to the dialogue than what I've got to add. But I love talking to people. I love asking questions, and I love hearing what other people think and sharing my opinions. And, you know, I love the back and forth of the entire thing. So I do that to a very large degree for myself, because I get something out of it. You know, it's how I get my kicks. But there are other parts that, you know, that I try to do more, and sometimes it's not that easy. You know, I tried to get a hound group going here where I invited people out, and, you know, I invited people out a ton of times. Nobody ever came, you know, and so I could sort of rest back on my laurels and be like, well, you know, I put together a group and tried to get people out and they didn't want to. I tried. I don't think I can do that. I don't think any of us can do that. I don't think we have the luxury of being able to just kind of, you know, sit back and see how this one plays out. I think we've got to be proactive, like Jason's been, like Danny has been, like Buddy has been. getting people together and all pulling in the same direction. And I think part of that, and it's something that I see a lot on social media, and I'm not going to go down that road again, but I think part of that is remembering that we are ultimately all in the same boat. We may be paddling differently. We may be paddling to the beat of a different drummer, but ultimately we're all in the same boat here. We are all loving things that are so similar that there are fewer differences than there are similarities. I believe that if we hound hunting in general, both domestically and internationally, regardless of where you live in the world, if it is going to survive, we all need to be on the same page. And what I mean by that is not just on the same page that this is something we all like, we can all agree on that, but on the same page about what we expect of each other, that we hold each other accountable for our behavior. And that not just in a negative way, but that we actually take the time to give each other pats on the back when things go well, or heck, when things go totally pear-shaped. Taking the time and being like, hey, I saw that happened to you. Boy, that sucks. You know, it's something that I see a lot of people taking the opportunity to flex. They take the opportunity to be like, oh, well, that never happened to me, or, well, you could have easily avoided that if you'd done blah, blah, blah. Okay, some constructive criticism's never amiss. You know, that's usually a good idea. You know, trying to break down when things go pear-shaped, trying to break down where things went wrong. That's not a bad place to start. But at the same time, I believe that rather than dividing, there are people in this sport that have that have had big platforms that have actively and consequently and intentionally divided the community. And I find that very not only disappointing, but extremely disrespectful of the people who have worked so hard to bring us together. I don't believe that the antis are the biggest threat to us. They are the hammer they are the axe that's going to chop our heads off. But it's only us. It's only our community that can stretch our heads out there and, you know, stretch our necks out and put ourselves in the position where we can have our heads chopped off, to, you know, not put it to a so fine point. If we do not begin to, or continue to support each other in the sport that we love, in the community that we love, we will, if we allow ourselves to be divided by people who are motivated for financial reasons, or, you know, a desire to have power, I believe that we will be the weaker for it. If you disagree with somebody, use that as a stepping stone for an interesting dialogue. You don't need to flex. If you're worth your salt as a houndsman, people are going to know that. Okay? You don't need to flex. Show what you know and leave it at that. This conflict that's been going on between different factions, you know, it's got to stop, man. Or we're going to lose everything that we hold dear. And especially when we've got people like the Doobies and like W that are working so hard to be inclusive, working so hard to bring us together. If nothing else, let's not work against those guys. Right? Like, we don't need to go and be the next Danny Doobie, Jason Doobie. Buddy, we don't need to do that. Let's just not get in their way. Open it up for dialogue. Ask questions. Even come with some criticisms. Be like, hey, I've always done it this way. Why are you guys doing it that way? Use every opportunity for a dialogue that brings us closer together. And not only closer together, but adds to the overall skill set. There are always going to be parasites out there. There are always going to be people that are going to prey on division. There are always going to be people that are going to listen to these podcasts or read these articles and, try and use them to their benefit in a way that is beyond what is okay. Knowledge should be universal. But the people who, I've had podcast guests walk away in recent weeks because people have taken advantage of the podcast they've listened to and moved into their territories. Moved in and poached off of their areas. Swooped in and taken animals out from under them. And, that's not cool. It kind of leads to these divisions that I would so love to see disappear in our sport. Is a lack, and it boils down to a lack of respect, I think. And I've been guilty of it too. I mean, heck, there have been times where I have just not been able to put my best foot forward. I've tried and I have failed. It happens. But I believe that if we all go into this with an attitude that we are all pulling in the same direction, that we all want the same things, and not allow the dividers to break us apart, I think we're going to be on much, much solider footing as we go forward, and maybe end up with something that we can leave to our kids and grandkids. That's worth having. That's not going to, hand off something that is realistically on its dying gasp, but hand off something that is strong and, worth having. So those are my thoughts on that thing just for today. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone has had a good season. I hope if you're ramping up or ramping down, whatever you're doing, I hope it's going well. I hope your season has been full of enough challenges to make it worth it, but not so many as to break your backs. And I want to know what y'all think. If you've got opinions, if you've got thoughts, if you've got questions, hop on the W podcast page, or hop on the Hunting Hound podcast page, or hop on the Full Cry podcast page or magazine page and ask those questions. Okay. You may not get a whole bunch of answers that are all that much use for you, but you may get a whole bunch of information that might lead you to do it differently yourself. The more information you can get, the stronger you're going to be. And I'm on all of those pages. I'll do my best to, if nothing else, direct you in the direction of somebody who has maybe answered that same question for me. Because there's so much knowledge out there, and sometimes we get a little bit bogged down that the people with the least amount of knowledge make the most noise. And I believe that if you hop on one of those pages, you'll see that some pretty knowledgeable people will answer you with some pretty good answers that are a little bit better than Yeah. Some of the baloney that's being posted, and also some of the baloney that's actually been podcasted about, or written about, or talked about. Have a great summer, everybody. I'll pop up here occasionally. Support the people that are building us up. Ignore the people that are tearing us down, even if those people are in our community. Take care.
Man, I love that sound.